What's up, everybody? We're back.
Yeah. Hey, welcome back to the Metalhead's Journey. Hey, so we're back doing the big four of prog metal this week. We're doing a lot of top 20 lists right now, so it can be confusing. This is the big four of prog metal. We are on to Fate's Warning. This is their second appearance on this list. That would mean this is their fourth best record. This is called Theories of Flight. So, as usual, we'll do a quick history of the band. And then, hey, for a special treat, I didn't have time to do anything this week. So, Jason actually did the history of the record for us here. So, we'll read that as well. So, Fate's Warning formed in 1982 as an American prog metal band from Hartford, Connecticut. They are often referred to as pioneers of the prog metal movement and have been referred to as one of the big four of prog metal. Guitarist Jim Matheos is the only constant member of the band though current vocalist Ray Alder did join the group in 1987. The band has released 13 studio albums, including Long Day, Good Night, released in 2020. They've sold over 1 million records worldwide. Theories of Flight, released in 2016, is the band's second to last album, so this will be their 12th studio album. This release marked their last with the label before re-signing with Metal Blade Records in 2019. Notably, it's the first album since FWX in 2004 where the band recorded as a four-piece. Guitarist Frank Aresti contributed solos on 2 tracks, but was credited only as a guest, making this his last appearance with the band. The album featured 2 singles, including From the Rooftops, which served as the lead single, and album opener, followed by White Flag. The album sold 3,025 copies in the first week. I can't find any other info on sales, but as far as I know, it's never gone gold.
That's a shame.
Oh man.
I look at that is legit. Like, I combed the fucking internet to see if I could find anything whatsoever on sales, and that was the only number that I could find.
3,025 in the first week, dude. That's
robust.
That's a barn burner, dude. I was surprised to find out how new this record was. I think what we found on these lists and what we found in following the metrics of our YouTube channel is we're old, and it seems like we appeal to a slightly older crowd. And look, I appreciate you guys probably waking up early in the morning to watch us, because you sure aren't staying up late to watch us late at night. And listen, I'm in bed by 9:30 most nights, so I'm with you. I'm not judging you, okay? But I was surprised to find out how new this record was, just because I think I'm so used to seeing just the old records that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I had a great time with this record. I got a chance when I was flying to Vegas a few weeks back. I downloaded a bunch of our next few records, and I tried to kind of get ahead of the game a little bit, 'cause sometimes it's hard for me to listen to all these albums. And I was texting Dave immediately. I was like, dude, this album slaps. I think I don't know how this is going to stack up against the other scores. I didn't ask Dave. I just scored this for what I thought it was. But I really enjoyed listening to this record. It's not, and listen, maybe this defeats the purpose. I don't know, but it's not super proggy like some of the other records we've done on here. In a lot of cases, I feel like this album is a lot more straightforward than than even the last record that we did from Fate's Warning, and then some of the Dream Theater stuff that we've done so far as well. There are certainly moments of prog in here, and it's honestly, I feel like it's more of a welcome moment when it comes in. I feel like I like it better when it's like when a band like uncorks it in moments, and it's like this little tasty morsel versus like eating an entire meal of prog metal for me. But man, I think this album sounds great. Spoiler alert, I'm going to give this a 10 on production. When we get to that category, I think the album sounds great. The Bix levels are perfect. Dude, I really enjoyed this record. I think this is one of those rare records where it left me wanting more. Where it's like, even though this has the proper amount of songs for our show of 8 songs, I wouldn't mind a couple more jams to go on this, but I thought this was
Or maybe
great.
swap out one of the tracks even.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get to it, right? But
Yeah.
swapping out the title track obviously would be an ideal situation for this album. But dude, overall, I found myself really enjoying this record. I'm putting this entire album minus Theories of Flight into my just overall playlist because I think every song on this album is great.
Yeah, I mean, minus the title track, I mean, you're looking at seven songs, like right at 48. Again, subtracting from the title track, 48 minutes. That's really good. I mean, that's strong. And that's including 2 10-minute plus songs, which honestly don't feel like 10 minutes for me. They're
Jason maybe, but not for you.
Yeah. they are worthy of it. And I just want to this is kind of early, but I'm probably just going to tip my hand here a little bit. But man, Ray Alder on vocals is such a strong performer. And I'm not taking anything away from Jim Matheos and the rest of the gang there, but
he steals this album.
I think Ray Alder is such a strong vocalist, and I want to say unique in the sense that, and I've talked to Josh about this off script here, off camera, but I feel like he has that perfect balance of he's in a slightly lower register. He's got a more a soulful type of voice. Like his natural, just lower register is really good, but he can hit all the notes. Like he is not lacking in talent when it comes to what he's capable of doing. And I just really, really like what he does on every song. He's such a he really makes you want to pay attention to the lyrics and just pay attention to what's going on. And again, I mean, not taking away from the riffs, which are really strong. I thoroughly enjoyed this record. It's I agree with Josh. This is going into my regular rotation. I am shocked and also angry at myself coming in as the biggest prog guy going into this. And I just never, I mean, to Josh's point with the album sales, Fates Warning just wasn't on my radar coming up as a younger kid. It was all I knew of Dream Theater, I knew of Queensryche, and I knew of a handful of other prog bands, but Fates Warning they slipped through the cracks for me, and I'm upset about that because I know I would have loved this in high school. This is this wouldn't have been out in high school, but I would have loved this band coming up in general.
Yeah, and it's crazy too because this is I forgot my point. Jason, why don't you go?
All right. So, as the resident non-prog fan, I actually enjoyed this album. Now, there are some caveats to what I'm saying here, and I'll get to all that because for me, I enjoy great choruses. I like to sing along, et cetera, et cetera. And for me, prog just doesn't lend itself to stuff that I jump into.
But this album does.
But this one does have 2 songs that I really do like that have choruses that I actually like to sing along to. Most of the other songs I just listen to. So I will say to Dave's credit, I think the vocals are very strong. They're not my favorite. I'm not tipping my hand for my MVP, so it's not going to be a sweep if that's where this was headed. But I did enjoy this album. I did enjoy listening to this album. Compared to other albums that we reviewed on the prog list, this one was much more, again, I feel like more digestible for somebody who doesn't like prog. So I enjoyed it. I had fun. I didn't mind listening to it. Probably listened to it 7 or 8 times since yesterday or since Monday because I just did not get a chance to listen to it over the weekend. So
yeah, what I was going to say was surprising that this would be the 4th best Fates Warning album. So looking forward to the other 3 here after this. Jonah, what you got?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with Dave and Josh on this one. Right out the gate, that opening track comes in. It's hard hitting. You know, all of the band members are very clearly on display. Maybe the bass is a little bit lower in the mix than I would personally like, but it's still there. I can still hear it. You know, everything is just it sounds great. All of the instruments, the guitar work is so good. And then yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk it to death maybe later more, but Ray Alder's vocals are just God, they're so good. And Dave, you brought up an interesting point about this album being on our radar when it first came out. You and I were working together at that time, and I can just imagine us, huddled around the computer there back by where we were working and jamming this thing and just it blowing our minds. It would be, yeah, I agree. I'm upset that I didn't know about this album sooner, especially because it was so recent.
Yeah,
It's really good. It's really
2016.
good.
I mean, that's when Hardwired came out. That's when Megadeth's Dystopia came out. Anthrax's For All Kings came out. I mean, 2016 was like a powerhouse year. And the sad part is of those albums I named, I only listened to Hardwired that year at that time because I didn't know. I just didn't know what I was doing, basically.
Man, I wonder if you think there's like 12 other good albums that we could make a bracket out of
for 2016.
Yeah, Jonah, who'd you have for your MVP of the record?
I mean, it's got to be Ray Alder. Jim Mateos was a close second, especially because he also had a hand in all the writing on the album, and all the writing is really solid. But almost every single song, at some point in the song, I have to kind of stop and just listen because Ray Alder's going off. Yeah. In particular, which song was it? I think it's.
I know, like Stars Our Eyes Have Seen is a big moment for him.
It's a big moment. I mean, White Flag also, that song is just insane in general. All throughout, Ray was constantly catching my ear, especially when it was on in the background. And some of these, vocal lines, there are some pretty catchy hooks and melodies and stuff. And I do find myself singing along, and it's really good. Yeah. It's got to be Ray.
The second song, like 7 stars, that chorus, like 7 stars.
Yeah, dude, it's just...
Yeah, I find myself, I mean, I often call myself a booger eating moron because I really, like, I think Dave and Jonah to a certain aspect really dig more the technical aspect of some of what we listen to. Like, I'm not super worried about the quality of production in a lot of cases. Like, I think that guy was right that says, like, I'm a vibe guy, I guess, right? Like, I just want to enjoy it. Like, I want to enjoy the vocal melody. I like pop music from that standpoint. And so that was the first thing that really grabbed me from this record. Like, I mean, the opening song grabbed me because the riff was super cool and the intro was nice. But man, like when the vocals kicked in, this was the Ray Alder show for me all the way through. He's just got, to Dave's point earlier, he's got such a good range. Like James LaBrie is another vocalist, obviously for Dream Theater on this list, and very good. I think the best moment I've heard from him thus far is still on Images and Words. And I think there he had a little bit more of a range. I feel like now as he's kind of gotten some of the later albums that I've heard, it's just kind of like more high all the time. It doesn't feel like there's as much range. Like Ray Alder has this like good low or kind of mid like voice, and he can hit those notes, but he's got a really powerful kind of mid-range vocal, and he's got good aggressive vocals too. So I just think this guy's phenomenal. Dave, I know you had Ray Alder. Jason, who you got?
I'm going to go with Jim Mateos.
Okay.
When I listened to this album, I found myself more or less listening to it in the background because for me, this style of music doesn't just come to the forefront for me. Like I don't really find myself paying attention too much to the words because they're not really speaking to me. But the one thing I did keep hearing over and over was the guitar riffs, and I'd be like, God dang, man, that's tasty, or whatever, or that's heavy, or it's overly complicated. Like there was some just off pattern, just really nice stuff, nice work throughout.
Really good solos.
Yeah, and the solos for me weren't even registering. Like it just kept being more and more about just the different guitar riffs throughout the song.
Yeah. There's great, Jonah, to your point, me and Dave were talking about this the other day, is it's harder. Like you don't really remember a ton of standout solo moments on this record, but then you go through and listen to it. There's one. I mean, he's just ripping. He's going off. But it's just not as forward as like a Dream Theater, you know. Whereas
there's not as much like pure wankery, like pure instrumental sections, right?
Yes. Yes.
You know, even on the 10-minute plus songs, like there isn't like 3-4 minutes of instrumental. Like I'm gonna use the term filler, but I don't mean it in the negative connotation, right? Like
I do.
I know.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things I really appreciated, especially about the longer songs, is they don't just sit on like a single riff for too long, because I feel like Dream Theater is really guilty of that on their longer songs. Is they'll sit on the same like 2 or 3 bar or 4 bar like section, and they just repeat it over and over and over again. And it does sound good. It sounds cool, but that's kind of how they pad their songs, I feel like. Whereas the 2 10-minute songs, they were kind of moving on to the next section pretty fast.
I don't even have a problem with the 2 long songs on here because they don't feel long.
Yeah. They feel like a journey and not they don't.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're not going like, is this still going on?
Oh my God, Jason over here with positive things to say. I can't believe it.
I know.
Let's get into production real quick. I already gave this album a 10 on production. I think it sounds fantastic. Jonah, you sound like you got a problem with the Bix levels. What do you got this thing at?
No. They're not a problem. Like, for my personal taste, I like more Bix. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I want the Bix levels like one more notch.
Yes, but from a critical standpoint, everything sounded amazing to me. This gets a 10. The production is fantastic. And it's a more modern album, so it's not to be, it's not necessarily a surprise. But for a 4-piece band to sound this good, I think is a testament to the production overall, but also their skill, obviously.
Yeah.
I went an 8.5 here, 8.75. It's very, very good. I would have liked the bass to be a little bit higher in the mix, just a touch. But I mean, like, it's a modern metal album, and it has a modern metal album sound, which means it's good. It sounds really good. And it's not overly compressed. Like, you can play it loud and it doesn't hurt your speakers or anything like that. Like, it's not overproduced in that sense. Like, it's good and crisp. So I like it. I thought it was really, really strong.
I gave it a 9 out of 10 only because I feel like it just needs a little bit more volume on the bass to give it a overall more power.
Fucking bass players. All right. So let's get into some of the album stuff here. So album title and album art. Name of the album, Theories of Flight. How did that make you guys feel?
I mean, I don't know where we're gonna go with this, but I gave it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Doing a little bit of research to go with the cover art. It's very. I don't know exactly what came first or second, and we'll get into it when I go over the cover art. But I feel like the overall idea of the album is an uplifting, kind of free spirit type of deal. So I don't have a problem with the actual title. I just don't think it's very, I don't know, mind blowing, I guess.
It doesn't pop. It doesn't like kind of grab you just from the title.
Yeah, we've had other titles that have been, I think, a little bit more kind of just grabs you from the top. I gave it a 6.7. I think the album title is certainly better than the album art. For me, Theories of Flight, it's interesting. Like, when I heard it, like, it kind of grabbed my attention. But I just don't know. I don't know enough yet, I guess, about the songs and the lyrics and everything to kind of be able to tie it back. But Jason, I like your thought process on the positivity, because I would say, I mean, overall, the vibes of these songs are pretty positive. Like, there's nothing that feels like real doom and gloom. Every song seems to have kind of like this positive feeling to it. So I don't know. Maybe coming at it from that perspective could change my feeling of the album title. But I'm at 6.7.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there. I gave both of them a 6.5, both album title and album art. They're right on the fine thing, and we may get to this later, but I feel like the album title would be stronger for me if the if the track associated with the title was a stronger track, because then I would have some more association with, okay, Theories of Flight. That
Dave, let's
song
talk
is a
about it
banger.
right now.
Hey,
Let's talk about it now.
Well, let me jump in and I'll give you what I did find. So that the problem here is that I don't know because I can't find what came first. So the idea of Theories of Flight apparently was kind of an idea. They had, I guess, another working title for the album at the time. Jim Matheos is in Michigan, comes across a random piece of art, which is the actual cover, and is inspired by the cover of that it kind of mimics the vibe of this album that they're working on. What I can't find out is what came first. I don't know if he comes across this album art, which is a piece of art from a guy in Michigan, which is already titled Theories of Flight. I don't know if that was first or if the album title and the song came first.
I would venture to guess it probably came from the album art. That'd be my guess.
Well, the thing is when you look it up, there's no definitive answer. Like there's an interview that he does where he says it was kind of like serendipitous. So it could have been there already, and then they came across the art, vice versa. Yeah. So for album art, I also gave it a 6 out of 10 because, no offense, but you didn't come up with anything. You just found somebody else's piece of art and then used it.
Yeah, I gave the album art a 3.4. I don't understand it. But let's talk about, like, while Dave is still on this here. I agree with you that I think the title of the album is affected by the title track. If you have a title track, it's like when we were doing Anthrax and Slayer, and it was like the namesake, and Iron Maiden, I think too. Like they even had songs named after the band, and those songs were not good. Like, what are you doing? Like, this should be like you should be taking whatever you feel are one of the 2 or 3 strongest songs on the album, and just name it Theories of Flight.
Yeah.
If you're going to do a title track, like this is a wasted title track in my opinion. Jonah, what do you think?
I kind of agree. I think it was because I don't always have time to listen to it all the way through the first time. So I think the very first time I listened to it, I got like maybe halfway and then I had to go do something else. And then not long after I came back to it. And when it got to the last song, I was just kind of like, is this all? Is this it? Is this all it is? Yeah. The last song, the final track, the title track. So it was a bit disappointing.
And it's the last song, which makes it worse too.
Now counterpoint, because it's the last track, it's very easy to just kind of stop listening before this song really gets going. So, or if you happen to be listening to it like maybe in a list and you have, all the Fates Warning tracks in a list or something, whatever. It's not hard to just kind of skip past this and brush it under the rug. And so that has that going for it, that it is at the very end of the album.
Which I think boosts the track listing score.
Right? Yes. So, I mean, I ended up giving the track title originally I was actually going to give it a little higher, but when you brought up the fact that it's the title track is so weak, I did bump it down a little bit. The title, I ended up giving it a 5, whatever. However, I do actually really like the art. I gave the art a 7.7. Okay. It looks very it kind of looks like a scientific, almost research document or something.
It reminded me of something like Da Vinci.
Exactly,
stuff.
and I like that. It's very stylized. The name of the band and the album are on the cover, which is a plus. So I actually pretty I dig this. I dig this album cover.
It's a very prog album cover. Like this,
sure,
like,
yeah.
You look at this and you're like,
it's kind of pretentious. Let's be real. It's kind of pretentious.
Yeah, for sure. And then you hear the story, which I didn't know till Jason said it, about he saw this art piece and like, this is 100%.
That's the most prog. That's the most prog origin story I've ever heard.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it is what it is.
All right, Jonah, why don't you take us into your top tracks?
Okay, so I struggled with this one because there is a lot of good songs, and I'd say they're on fairly equal footing. But I did, because of the way I scored each song individually, I did on my subsequent listens tweak, okay, this one, I think this one's a little better, and it adjusted the scores a little bit. So that said, let me see, let me pull it up here. So we're gonna go with, for number 3. I'm just gonna say the whole rest of the album is honorable mention because it's really good from start to finish, except for Theories of Flight. So for number 3, I had The Ghosts of Home. It's a little ballady in the intro, and then it gets into the good, like, it's just that song doesn't feel as long as it is to me, and it goes really hard. Number 2, I ended up, so number 1 and number 2, I feel like on a given day I could probably switch them for me, but when the chips fell, I ended up with SOS at number 2, and that song alone is over a 9 for me. This riff on this song is so good. It's a little more proggy than some of the other ones, which is fine. The bridge is kind of weird with like the way the bass effects they have on it, which I love. And of course, the vocals are outstanding on this song. And then for me, number 1, I struggled, like I said, going back and forth between this one and SOS, but it's got to be White Flag for me. That song is just...
Jonah, on seven tracks that we could choose from, you and I didn't share one single song together.
That's fine, because all these songs are good in my opinion.
I know, that's just crazy that with 7 songs, we wouldn't share one.
That's fine.
Then you go, number 1 next, Josh, after him.
Yeah, number 1's gonna be White Flag for me.
All right.
That's such an aggressive
so I did
song. It's so good.
Yeah. I did have an honorable mention for me. I went with the intro from the Rooftops. So this is one of those weird moments though, where it's like, we have this bit after this where we usually try to cut these albums down to 8 tracks because 8 is like the ideal metal length album. Which they understood the assignment. They already gave us 8 tracks. But this is one of those where I wish we would have had like that small 2-minute intro into the song. So this song would start with just that little effect driven riff. Right into the main riff. Like, I would love to just be able to go to that track and have that and not have to navigate through 2 minutes of some change.
Hey,
I'm
Josh,
not saying that, yes, sir.
I do want to point out to you, Fates Warning, I just double checked. They legitimately understand the assignment because the 3 next albums they have on this list are all also 8 songs.
My man, the band after our heart.
Dude, that's just so funny that they truly understand that.
So, look, the intro is great for the song. I just wish that it was a separate track so I could just get right to that tasty riff in there. Number 3 for me, Like Stars Rise, I've seen. Man, just great melodies throughout this entire song. And just a great solo in that one. 2 for me, 7 stars. I think this is absolutely carried by Ray Alder. I love the vocals in this song. Love the melodies during the chorus. And number 1 for me, Jonah, I cannot believe you didn't even have this anywhere in there, is The Light and Shade of Things. I mean, probably the most prog song on the record.
Yeah, it gave me Tool vibes, that song did.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments in there where it feels like the song is done, and then you look and it's like, oh, there's still 3 minutes left. All right, we're coming back. And it keeps going. But just what a cool song. I think just a great showcase for every member of the band.
And before we get into track listing, the fact that that's the halfway point of the album, I think is perfect.
So, hot take. I think that should have been the title track and the title of the album, The Light and Shade of Things, because I think that actually fits perfectly for the vibe of the album. That's just me.
Yeah.
Spoiler, it's my number 1 song as well, Josh. But I agree with Jonah. Like I could literally just name the rest of the album as an honorable mention, and honestly, some of these other songs that I don't name could easily be in my top 3 in some way, shape, or form. But I had to make some tough decisions. I ended up going with White Flag as my number 3. That song is super, super heavy.
Yes.
I love the track, especially coming out of The Light and Shade of Things. I think it kind of amps up the the energy of the album.
I forgot to write this down, but I had a thought earlier when I was listening to the album the last time. White Flag to me is like a good, if Megadeth was good.
Yikes, you heard it here.
That's my hot take.
So my number 2, Josh, you nailed it, 7 stars. So good of a song, incredibly strong. Like I love From the Rooftop. I mean, this album is stellar. And The Light and Shade of Things is my number one. What a song, what a track, what a China.
What a China.
If I did have to pick, this song was like, it was in my top 3 until like yesterday. But then like White Flag, like I had to pick between this and White Flag, and that's like Stars of Our Eyes Have Seen. And they're one after the other on the album. I knew one of them was going to be in my top 3, and I just had to go with my heart to decide which one that was, and I just went with White Flag, just because I feel like it's a slightly heavier song, and I love the chorus of it. They're both great. I mean, they're almost the same length as well. It's so good. That's my top 3.
All right. So apparently, I'm pretty fucking smart. That's all I gotta say.
Okay.
So honorable mention, I got SOS, as well as Ghost of Home. They both ended up scoring the same for me, so they finished at my number 4. My number 3, The Light and Shade of Things. My number 2 and 1 could swap on any given day. So I have number 2, White Flag,
Nice.
and number 1, 7 Stars.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. All right, so hey, this is that moment where we like to recognize that the best metal albums out there only have 8 tracks on them. So this is where we like to cut these tracks down. Now listen, we already identified that this album only has 8 songs on it, but we're still going to go ahead and cut Theories of Flight from this record because it just does not, it should not be on this list or on this album.
We do what you suggested, where we split track 1. So we're doing the opposite of what we usually do.
Oh, there we go.
Try to combine tracks to save a cut. Now we're going to split tracks to make a cut.
Now I do believe that I read that Theories of Flight was supposed to be part of Ghost of Home. I don't know if it's supposed to be the outro or the intro or what.
I mean, it sounds like an out. I know it has some musical parts in it. It's 4 minutes long, but it's not all 4 minutes of it is music.
No. And look, to agree with the three of you, it is my lowest rated score.
Now, hot take potentially, because they have 3 other albums that do this. Maybe they recognize, hey, we got to have 8 songs. We can't just we can't ship this with 7.
With
yeah,
7.
but you can't tell me they don't have something else on the cutting room floor. Like, come on.
I mean, it was clearly an artistic choice. It was clearly an artistic choice.
I'm also operating under the assumption that they like everything that they put on the album, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, sure, yeah.
So
I'm sure.
Like, I'm sure. But like, look, this album should have been called "The Light and Shade of Things." I'm just saying. That's like such a better album title.
Dave,
that is a good title.
Give us your rating for the track listing.
I came in pretty strong. I gave it a 9.5, and the reason for that is something Jonah mentioned earlier. Is the fact that the worst song is the last song. If that song would have been somewhere snuck in anywhere else, it would have completely, in my opinion, ruined not ruined. That's strong. It would have hurt the flow of the record.
So should we reward the album for knowingly putting the worst song at the end so you can skip it?
Yes, because they did the work.
I gave it 7. I gave it a 7 because I expect the last track to be a banger on every album that we do. It's the outro. Like this track should be the one that keeps you wanting to come back. I shouldn't have to be like, okay, great, I just finished the 7th track. Let me go ahead and turn this album off.
Yeah, but the Ghost of Home is a great closing song.
It is.
So put this atrocity of a title track and just put it in the 5 spot.
I've already hidden Theories of Flight on my Spotify, which is something you can do and should do right away.
Well, I mean, I didn't hide it. I just only added 7 songs to my overall playlist.
But then you're done. The album didn't.
Yeah, I know. But I'm still going to fault the track listing for that.
But you didn't have to break from your copy paste. You did it in one clean line. They did that.
Yeah,
they
click 1, hold shift, click the 7.
Dude, they could have. They made it way easier.
I might take it down to a 6 just for that.
All right. Where's
I'll go
everybody else
next
at?
then. I'll go next. I gave it a 9 for basically all the same reasons as Dave, just not quite as high. But I made kind of an observation before we started recording, and for me, the way I'm viewing it, and this is going to affect my score as well. The way I'm viewing it is Theories of Flight is kind of like when you go see a movie and there's a really long, like flashy end credit scene. And like, oh yeah, this is cool to watch, but it's not part of the movie, so it's not going to affect how I enjoyed the rest of the movie. That's kind of how I'm viewing Theories of Flight. It's like the end credits of the album. It's the little artsy fartsy piece that they attach to the end so they can kind of justify the theme of everything. And it's fine. It's whatever. But everything else before that, solid gold.
Yep.
9.
All right, I gave it an 8. And the way I guess I'm going to do this track listing, because I really don't care, is I'm just going to see what the scores I gave per track, and as long as it's not top heavy, bottom heavy in the way that I review these songs, then it's going to get something. But I have the same issue as Josh. Like you don't close out an album with your weakest song.
With the stink.
I gave it an 8, a flat 8 out of 10.
There you go. All right, well, hey, we're moving on to the last category here. This is where we like to give our actual score for the album. Now, just to give you an idea of how we score these things, for a lot of folks out there, an average score would be a 7. Well, for us, it's a 5. So for us, anything any variation between 4.9 and below are various levels of we would not recommend that album. Any variation of 5 to 9 is various levels of we would recommend it, and anything between 9 and 10 is like an all-time classic record. Jason, I think you're going to give this the lowest score, so why don't you go first?
All right. So in the beginning, I did say that I enjoyed this album start to finish pretty much. I did like it.
My score is not going to show it.
But my score is going to be meh. It's going to be what it is, and I'm going to explain, and I'll be short about it. While listening to this album, what I usually find myself doing is when something grabs my attention, I look at my phone and I'm like, okay, so what song is this? The issue with this is that I only had 2 songs that I kept coming back to that I actually wanted to listen to multiple times. And never, besides to 2 songs, did I ever find myself actually singing along. I did find myself bobbing my head and kind of jamming out. So it was an enjoyable album to listen to. I don't think I would ever actually just put this on to listen to it consciously. As far as background music, anything else that I'm doing, it's fantastic. So my score is higher than any other prog listing one that I've given, but it's probably going to be lower than what everybody wants. I gave it a 7.1.
My man. Okay. Hey, way to be in the 7s, Fossil. Way to nut up and be a man. Good for you, dude. Yeah. Jonah, what you got?
So I thought this album was excellent. I think given more time with it, because again, I'm probably going to steal a little bit of David's thunder, so I won't talk too much about it, but with enough time with this album, I feel like the score could actually rise. Because a lot of my albums that I score like 9 and above, or higher 8s maybe, I usually have maybe just a slight bit of nostalgia for them, because they're all-time classics. Like we said, anything 9 and above is. However, with this album in particular, I think it's so solid that if I listen to it more, and I will listen to it more, and as it becomes kind of more ingrained into my psyche and like my musical profile, I guess, in my brain, I could see this going up even higher than what I'm about to give it. But all that said, I ended up landing on an 8.7, and that's with me making kind of an exception for that last track, because the track by itself, the way I score, did score fairly low, but because everything else is so solid, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna not even worry about that track. So I ended up at an 8.7. This is an excellent album, near legendary for me, but I could see it climbing above a 9 given time.
It's funny, the whole time Jonah was talking, I was thinking, I'm just going to say exactly what Jonah said, and then I'm going to give a score that's probably going to be slightly higher than Jonah's because he typically scores a little lower. Jonah, me and you, same wavelength, 8.7, baby.
Let's go.
I agree, man. I think this is one that it'll get better over time, and as you put years and some nostalgia with it, this easily climbs into the 9s somewhere down the line.
Guys, what are we doing here? Now, granted, I don't have the exact same score because I could lie, right, for the views or what, for, the extra 1 or 2 thumbs up, but it's not. I'm not going to do that. I'm coming in at an 8.8. But I mean,
I figured you'd be at a 9.
Like, I will say, Jonah, yes, you did steal my thunder, but I still love you. Yes, I agree with Jonah. My brain just kind of won't let me put this in the 9s yet, and I completely agree with Jonah. I think it's just nostalgia. Like, it's like right on the cusp, right? It's right on the cusp of legendary, and for as of right now, I feel like it's the title track that is kind of mentally blocking me from putting it in legendary status. But I think with time I'll get over that and I'll just move on from it and be like, bro, I got 7 songs, 48 minutes of pure prog metal glory. Like, I'm gonna get over myself, and this is truly a legendary record. But that puts this album at an 8.33. It takes the crown from Dream Theater's Train of Thought currently on our prog list by I would say a fairly commanding amount for us. Again, 8.33 versus an 8.15 for Train of Thought. And I do have our, like, specifically what our ratings mean. So an 8 for us is considered very good, strongly recommend. Album scoring 8 are highly enjoyable, well crafted, with some impressive songs or unique elements. They might not reach the transcendent level of a 9 or dare I say 10, but they're excellent and come highly recommended for fans of that genre.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that perfectly encapsulates where we're all at with this record right now as a whole.
Yeah, I think just to wrap up that last point about this album maybe possibly climbing higher, this album's 8 years old. Tying it back to what Josh was saying earlier, we're kind of used to listening to a lot of albums that are much older than that. So they've had time to kind of, for lack of a better term, age well.
Ferment.
Whatever analogy you want to use, marinate. Yeah. This album came out in the 2010s. It's 8 years ago, less than a decade ago. It's not even a decade old. And I feel like most of the music we listen to is like, at least 2 decades old at this point, because we're all old fogies. But
like this album doesn't even have, even for people who listened to it in 2016, it's not like this album is just like it's weighted by this huge nostalgia, right? Like it's so yeah, this will certainly be in the 9s for me in a couple of years.
I think so.
All right. Well, hey, if you're old and you made it this far, go ahead and hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're putting out weekly metal content right now. We got metal reactions, metal reviews, metal time machines, and metal brackets, and all kinds of other cool stuff. And here in the meantime, live long and prosper.
Get your health checkups.
Later.
Peace.
Insurrection's the best.
No, it's not. First Contact, baby.